How do you decipher between injury and soreness?
That's a great question. I think it's a question that as lifelong athletes, we're constantly asking, because it leads into the question of when should I push? When should I listen to my body? When do I go, you know what, body? No, I know you're saying that I can't go anymore, but we're going to go ahead and go anymore. So what's the difference between injury and discomfort? Discomfort, you can continue to work through, where injury is going to prevent you from being able to work through that. I think of an injury as something that sidelines you, that you can't push through that. Example of this is a rugby player that fractures their tibia, and it's an open fracture. There's discomfort, but there's an injury. And that injury is going to prevent them from being able to perform in any aspect of that sport. So an injury is going to put you on the sideline. Discomfort is something that you're able to work through. And then there's different levels of discomfort. There's the discomfort of lactic acid, which is one of the more discomforting feelings that you can have. There's the discomfort of mental fortitude, of that battle that you have within yourself of, can I keep pushing at this level? Is this pace sustainable? That brings on a level of discomfort inside yourself, trying to figure that out. And then there's a level of discomfort of potentially dealing with something like a tendon injury and trying to figure out how much do I actually push into it. And if I push into it too far, then it does become an injury because it's going to sideline me. So hopefully that answers that question. Anything that you would add in, because this is an area as an athlete that you've worked through.
Yeah, and I think I'm still working through it and trying to figure it out, because not that I'm new to CrossFit, but if you look at from 0 to 18, we hardly lifted weights ever. Where now I'm like lifting weights on a regular basis, like 10 years down the road and stuff. So I think I'm still trying to figure out, is this injury or is this soreness? I think one of the big things that like when I think of injury, I think of, yes, being sidelined, but then I think of like you're out for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
So I can look back and say, in this past year, I had that like ankle sprain that like really did kind of take me out for a couple weeks, and that was unfortunate. But even this past week, like we did a lot of overhead shoulder movement, and my shoulder is really sore, but I'm still able to like do the work. I might have to take it a little easy, but I'm not sidelined to the point of like not being able to like lift overhead at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like every person is going to experience injury and soreness differently. And I love the different, like the differentials that
Mm-hmm.
that you used of like, is there mental fortitude? Is it lactic acid and all of that? But I think there's a level of asking yourself the question of soreness equals discomfort equals pain, whatever. But does that mean that I have to like sit out and stop enjoying like what I'm doing? I think that there's definitely been times in my life where I've had discomfort and I've said that it was an injury.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that because of fear. I was afraid that it was an injury, and so it like laid me out for a little bit, took me out of like the sport for a little bit. Where now I'm like, nah, I really can push through, and the push through, I think this is what it comes down to. Sorry, I'm like extroverting all my thoughts. But I think one thing it comes down to is like, is the push through creating more discomfort into injury,
Mm-hmm.
versus like, is the push through, yes, if you're working out, you're going to be sore, you're going to have discomfort, but you can still push through and be fine, or is it creating injury long term? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. And let's tackle another thing that's thrown out there. No pain, no gain.
Yeah.
On the back of every t-shirt in the 90s for the longest time, other than the N1 mixtape ones that had like trash talk on them, but we won't go down that lane because we could be there for a while. But shout out to my N1 fans that are still watching the Professor videos and Hot Sauce and Skip to My Lou. But anyway,
90s.
the 90s, no pain, no gain. Maybe it was the 2000s, 90 to 2000, somewhere in that range. If you know, you know. No pain, no gain. Where does that come from? That does not come from injury. That does not come from a rehabilitation protocol. That comes from a strength training, performance-based protocol. No pain, no gain references when you get to lactic threshold, it is very painful. It is very hard to keep on moving. It's very uncomfortable. But that's where the biggest gains can be made for particular types of sports. So no pain, no gain comes down to, can you take the pain of fatigue, the pain of lactic acid, but continue to push into that, knowing that it's going to help your performance in the long term. It does not come from, I have an injury, my knee's swelling up, I'm not able to contract these muscles, there's redness, there's signs of a true injury. That's where no pain, no gain makes absolutely no sense. Like in that, if you keep trying to push through that, you're just going to set yourself back further and further and further and further. And a quick example I can give of this is an athlete that initially tears their ACL. Do they need surgery right away? No. Do they need surgery long term? There's a lot of evidence showing that they may not. But in those early phases when there's swelling, there's instability, probably not a good time to be working on cutting and power-based movements, because now what ends up happening is that knee's loose, one, because of ligament, two, because the muscles aren't firing around it, three, the nervous system isn't trusting it. So now if we have this person doing this and we're going no pain, no gain, well, now we're setting them up for meniscal injury. That can set them back further, because now there's more swelling in the knee, which means there's more inhibition, meaning that there's less likelihood that the brain's going to say, contract these muscles around it. So that's an instance in like, no pain, no gain makes absolutely no sense in that scenario. So the thing I always tell people, how do you know it's an injury versus how do you know that it's just discomfort? Well, if there's an injury, there's going to be signs of injury. There's going to be swelling. There's going to be inhibition of different muscle groups that are happening. There's going to be a lack of function that's happening that, for example, like your shoulder had discomfort in it. We modified it and you're able to keep moving. If there's a big injury in there, there's going to be swelling in that area. Muscles are going to be inhibited, which then makes it very, very, very difficult to try to lift and do that movement. So with injury, there's other signs associated with it. So hopefully that clears up the no pain, no gain t-shirt sayings that are commonly out there.